This is crazy. So your theory that part of the tariffs, they exist solely for the power and corruption of it, because then everybody has to come petition the king for an exception.
Yeah.
And that's actually happening.
Yes, it's happening. And I personally think that is not just a reason for the tariffs. I think that is the central reason for the tariffs. In any case, let's go ahead and put this report from Jeff Stein up on the screen here. He says, Scoop, we've obtained internal cables showing how the U.S. government is pushing countries facing tariffs to clear the way for Musk's Starlink. State Department says it's good to encourage other countries to adopt Starlink. Others point to blurring of Musk's private government roles. He starts out this piece, if you read it, with the anecdote with regard to Lesotho, which we talked about is this small African nation that was hit initially with 50% tariffs. So it's roughly 2 million citizens, and they're trying to figure out what the hell can we do. Well, one of the things they decided to do is they're going to sign up with Starlink. And apparently Elon had been pushing this for a while and they'd been resisting. And now, because they want to try to curry favor and they realize this is a way to do it, they are saying, okay, fine, we're going to go with Starlink. They are far from the only country. Jeff names maybe 5 or 6 other nations that have India's, I know, among them, that have also said, oh, you know what? Actually, Starlink, that sounds good to us. We're going to go for it. So, yeah, I mean, just totally nakedly corrupt. Elon Musk is the richest person on the planet. He is one of the most powerful people in the Trump administration, and Tesla may be in the toilet, but SpaceX, Starlink, doing great.
So this is a mafia scheme. It's like when they come and break your windows at your store and they go, it'd be a shame if something worse happened to your store.
Yeah.
You know, you probably need some protection. Look, if you give me 20% of your business, then I'll make sure I look after you and nothing bad will happen. So they're causing the problem and then selling the solution to the problem. That's what this is.
Yeah.
And by the way, we had such a high tariff rate on Lesotho because they export diamonds to us, right? And we don't, it's like they're not buying Ford F-150s or anything like that. It's a very poor country.
Stricken country, yeah.
And as you know, Trump equates trade deficit with bad. That there's no such thing as a good trade deficit. Even though you have a trade deficit with the local grocery store, they're getting one over on you. They're screwing you over.
Right.
And so that's why we have
Lesotho.
That's why we have such a, that's why the tariff rate is what it is against them. But to your point, yeah, this absolutely could have been the plan from the very beginning. That let's just basically screw every country over and then force their hand where now they have to come to us and they have to basically be like, what do you want? How much money do you want? What percentage do you want? What businesses would you like me to approve? Would you like a subsidy for this business or that business?
Would you like me to give millions to your crypto shitcoin?
And by the way, like we discussed, Trump has this big project he's building in Oman. He has stuff in Dubai. He has stuff in UAE. He has stuff in Saudi Arabia. He's got stuff all over the place. This shit is all tied to it.
Yeah.
Right? But I don't... They're missing the bigger picture because they don't understand that much of the world is going to go, I'm not fucking playing this game. I'm not going to deal with you anymore. I'll deal with China. I'll deal with the EU. We'll make these other trade deals.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening. It's happening right now. The EU and China, just recently, now they're in talks, and there's about to be a massive increase in trade between China and the EU. Because why would you? I mean, we're a mafia country. You can't trust us. We're totally unstable. Our word is meaningless. We pulled out of the Iran agreement. We pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord. Trump's not abiding by his own negotiated trade deal with Canada, the USMCA. Why would anybody deal with us? There's no reason to deal with us. So this is just yet another example of whatever the worst thing you think they're doing is, that's right, they're doing it.
Last thing that I'll make, which is another point about Starlink, is the amount of power that, just forget about even Elon's connection to the government, just his running of Starlink, the amount of power that gives him is actually really deeply disturbing. You'll remember in the early days of the Ukraine war, he decided, like, I'm going to give the Ukrainian military Starlink access. And Starlink ended up being incredibly important for their comms on the battlefield. And then at certain points, he wasn't happy with something that Zelensky did vis-a-vis Crimea. And so he pulled their access in certain regions. And whatever you think of, like, that war and those decisions by Zelensky, et cetera, you basically had Elon Musk with, like, a veto over foreign policy and over the actions that were being taken in this war. Another example of this is, you remember when Modi was in town, and not only did he meet with Trump, he met with Elon. And they posed for pictures. I mean, it looked like two heads of state meeting. And lo and behold, now India is one of the countries that's like, oh, yeah, we'll sign on with Starlink. So separate and apart, I mean, the corruption part is horrific. Separate and apart from that, there's an issue of any billionaire owning this kind of vital telecoms infrastructure and being able to do with it what they wish.
Nobody should be a billionaire. Billionaires shouldn't exist. It should not be a thing, because that amount of extreme wealth concentration means you can undermine every element of a democratic society and a democratic system, because you've given those people power that is rival to other actual governments. So
absolutely,
they're like de facto governments in and of themselves.
Absolutely.
And that absolutely threatens everybody's rights. That makes it so that everybody's rights are in danger. Because if you get on one person's fucking bad side, they can crush you. Their voice is worth so much more than a random grandma in Cleveland who donates $10 to their local politician.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody cares what that grandma says, but they care what Elon Musk says. They care what Elon Musk does, and it really undermines democracy. Crystal, we got to talk about this John Fetterman thing. So there was that huge New York Times article that came out.
New York Magazine.
Oh, was it? Oh, that's right. It was New York Magazine. And just incredible detail about how much John Fetterman is, I mean, look, if I'm being honest, it seems like it's brain damage from the stroke and that he has genuine, severe mental illness at the moment. Because when you read through that, he is not connected to this earth. First of all, he had that big car crash a while back.
Yeah.
Well, he was driving like an absolute psychopath and like a madman and, you know.
Coming back from his Bill Maher appearance.
Right. And he's unbalanced. I mean, when you read that, it reads like run-of-the-mill bipolar symptoms or schizophrenia symptoms. Like, the guy's not there. He doesn't even read his briefings. He doesn't learn anything about anything that he votes on or talks about. But then he'll tell people, like, I'm the most knowledgeable person in the world on this issue.
Yeah.
I don't know. Why would you disagree with me? I know what I'm doing. He'll have random, absurd mood swings. He apparently traveled on one of his kids' birthdays. He got in a car and traveled to Connecticut and didn't tell fucking anybody. And then afterwards, he was like, I was visiting the gravesite of my friend who died in elementary school or something.
Yeah.
Like, the dude, he's not fit. Like, he needs a caretaker. Never mind the fact that he shouldn't be a senator, right? This is Dianne Feinstein all over again, just a different way. It's not about aging. It's about mental illness and, like, literally having a stroke give you brain damage.
Yeah. And his wife, according to the article, very upset about his position on Gaza, among other things, saying, where is the husband that I married?
Beg the staff, too. Say, what do you guys do? Is it you posting these things? Who's posting these things? These things are disgusting. And the staffers were like, we're in the same boat as you. We think this is disgusting, too. This is all him.
Compared Palestinians to spoiled milk, said kill them all.
He said kill them all.
So, you know, the lefties who were out there sort of like half joking, like, oh, brain damage made him a Zionist.
Brain damage made him conservative.
Yeah. And I mean, listen, he, on the campaign, took pro-Israel positions to avoid.
It wasn't like this.
But to make this like your number one thing and support every genocidal, maniacal thing that Bibi Netanyahu could possibly dream up. I mean, aligning yourself really with like Ben-Gvir and Smotrich. That's something else entirely.
So I have an update on that story for you. You guys can throw this up on the screen here, but this came out after that New York Magazine article. Democratic Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania was meeting last week with representatives from a teachers union in his home state when things quickly devolved. Before long, Fetterman began repeating himself, shouting and questioning, "Why is everybody mad at me? Why does everyone hate me? What did I ever do?" And slamming his hands on a desk, according to one person who was briefed on what occurred. As the meeting deteriorated, a staff member moved to end it and ushered the visitors into the hallway, where she broke down crying. The staffer was comforted by the teachers, who were themselves rattled by Fetterman's behavior, according to a second person who was briefed separately on the meeting. The interaction at Fetterman's Washington office, described to the Associated Press by the two people who spoke about it on the condition of anonymity, came the day before New York Magazine published a story in which the former staff and political advisors to Fetterman aired concerns about the senator's mental health.
Wow.
So in other words, 100% proving the concerns of the staffers.
Yeah.
100% proving it. He has zero emotional regulation.
And is apparently refusing to take his meds. Yeah.
Bro, that, just like Kanye West, just like everybody, seemingly everybody who has bipolar and or schizophrenia, they're like, no, I'm special and I feel good. So I'm going to do that. One of the symptoms of bipolar is this thing called mania. And mania is this incredibly euphoric up feeling. And they really feel like they're, king of the world in that scenario.
It's a high.
Which is why you see, Kanye West, he won't sleep for a fucking week and he'll be screaming and thinks he's saying the most profound things in the world, but he sounds like a fucking idiot. My grandmother had bipolar. At the time, it was called manic depression. And I was talking to my mom about it, and my mom was saying that when she was going through a manic phase, she would be like, you couldn't talk to her. There was no reasoning with her because she felt like, I'm a god and you're a fucking pissant. And that's how they all act. Now, with my grandma, she had more of the depressive symptoms than she had the mania. My mom only saw the mania one time. I never saw the mania. And she was actually one of the people who went to the NIH, did the initial study with the NIH on Prozac. And apparently Prozac, saved her life, because my whole life, I remember her just being cool and chill, But like that, they have to take their fucking medicine. I mean, we've had Freddie DeBoer on this show. Freddie DeBoer suffers from bipolar disorder, and he openly says, I literally ruined my life and pushed everybody who was close to me away until I started taking my medicine and realized I'm out of line. Because one of the things you hear, for example, they make like totally bogus allegations based on absolutely nothing against people who are close to them, right? And ruin the relationship completely. And they convince themselves, oh, I've uncovered the plot and the scheme, and I've found the missing puzzle piece. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just, it's hard for me to have sympathy, because when you're a grown-ass man, there has to be at least 1%, 2%, 5% recognition in his mind that everybody seems scared of me right now. What am I doing? You're telling me there's zero introspection? Zero. Right. Like, if you have even an inkling, why is everybody concerned to be around me? Am I doing something wrong? Just take your fucking medicine.
Yeah, that's the piece is I have a lot of empathy for, what you're dealing with. You went through this serious medical issue. Now you're obviously suffering this psychological issues. He had to be, committed at Walter Reed for a while, and apparently he was in a really bad place. And they got him, on medication, and apparently he was doing a little bit better.
When he was on antidepressants, yeah.
Yeah, and but then, there is still some agency involved here. You're hurting the people around you.
I'm sure his wife has begged him to take his medicine.
Yeah, because
I'm sure.
You're unwilling to, to follow the program. And so at that point, you have to also ascribe some agency here. So in any case, yeah, it looks like the staffers very much this very much confirmation. And there's also another piece here too, which is Democrats just got through this whole Biden age decline cover up and the Dianne Feinstein age cover up. And now Chuck Schumer's out there saying, oh, Fetterman seems great. He's a star, I believe.
He did.
He's a star.
He did. By the way, I'll also say
everyone who interacts with him has to know.
100%.
Has to know.
Absolutely.
And so, once again, they're like, oh, nothing to see here. He's great. He's fine. He's doing wonderful.
I'll also just say he needs to resign. That's one of the things.
This is not the person that people voted for.
But it's also one of the things that we've seen in this country with gerontocracy in general is just the total inability to be like, yeah, I'm washed. I got to go. You know what I'm saying? You have to resign. And I even think we should come up with some law where there's some ability to do a no confidence vote in a politician to get rid of them. I think that should be an option. I think lawyers can present a case on both sides of it, then the people can vote on it directly or something like that to determine whether or not to recall a politician. Because this is fucking untenable what we're doing here.
Imagine someone, really suffers some sort of severe, where it's really clear. I mean, I'm just trying to make the edge case where it's really clear this person's unable to do the job.
Let's call that person John Fetterman.
Or you could call it, Feinstein is even, I think, more clear. Right, this woman did not even know where she was, who she was.
Called people by the wrong names.
People who were colleagues for 30 years, she didn't know who they were anymore. And we're just still, her staff is just going through the motions on her behalf. Yeah, there has to be some sort of democratic check on that sort of situation. And I think, it needs to be exercised with regard to John Fetterman. With the president, I guess you have the 25th Amendment?
25th Amendment, but it's not, the people don't vote on it. It's his cabinet.
I know, but at least there's some sort of process in place.
You could do that but if you allow staffers to do that for senators, then you could just,
you run the risk of
a bad situation. Infiltration and, anyway. All right, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about, I don't know if you know this, but the billionaires are fighting, Crystal.
Good. Let them fight. Let them fight. I don't know the details, but let them fight.
So while announcing that, this is Bill Gates I'm talking about here, while announcing that he's donating his remaining fortune, over $100 billion, to the Gates Foundation, along with news that the foundation will spend down all of its funds and close within the next 20 years, Bill Gates accused Elon Musk of, quote, killing the world's poorest children because of the U.S. aid cuts.
Accurate.
Gates told the Financial Times that the abruptness of the cuts had left life-saving food and medicines expiring in warehouses, sometimes on ships too, and could lead to the resurgence of diseases such as measles, HIV, and polio. Quote, the picture of, this is what Bill Gates said, the picture of the world's richest man killing the world's poorest children is not a pretty one. I'd love for him to go in and meet the children that now have been infected with HIV because he cut that money, Gates told the Financial Times.
Accurate. Absolutely
that is accurate. You know, some people, when you talk about U.S. aid, some people get really focused on the fact that that's like our soft power tool, and because it's a tool for what? It's a tool for imperialism. It's soft power for imperialism. Having said that, we all need to agree to live in reality to the extent that you have to look at objectively the impacts of what the money is going for. And there is no doubt, nobody would contest that giving medicine to kids who would have HIV if you don't give the medicine to, that's a good thing. That it's a good thing to vaccinate people against measles, right? It's a good thing to vaccinate people against polio. It's a good thing to make sure malaria that has killed a colossal number of people, ridiculous. It might be like the #1 killer of all time, right? It's good to do that, right? It's good to do that. So I don't quite understand. Like, I understand what they're saying, but the argument doesn't land for me that, like, this is just a tool of U.S. imperialism. But what Trump is doing is saying, let's get rid of all the actually objectively good things we do, and let's ramp up the militarism. Well, let's bomb more people. Let's spend $1 trillion. So there is no option on the table of, like, let's get rid of the soft power and the hard power. Trump is just going, all hard power. Let's do that.
That's precisely right. I mean, this has been the ongoing theme with the Trump administration is let's take something bad and let's make it worse. And if you look at the budget, the Republican budget that is coming out, they are significantly increasing the budget for the Pentagon, and they are slashing, obviously, USAID, but the State Department in general. So what does that tell you? Yeah, it's all war and guns and bullets and, you know, death and carnage, and no diplomacy, no soft power. All of that is being rolled back. So yes, that is a significantly worse situation. And again, it's, you know, fits together with the way that he operates. The only kind of power he actually respects is the power of bullying and force and violence and coercion. So, you know, it makes sense, certainly in line with his personality.
So they've already done some analyses on this, and this is in Nature magazine. They say, the United States has spent roughly $12 billion on global health in the year 2024. Without that yearly spending, ready for this? Roughly 25 million people could die in the next 15 years, according to models that have estimated the impact of such cuts on programs for tuberculosis, HIV, family planning, maternal and child health.
And the amount we spend on this compared to the federal government budget is
$12 billion is fucking peanuts. That is fucking nothing.
To save this many lives, it has to actually be one of the most efficient uses,
without a doubt,
of our taxpayer dollars.
This is actually how we've been viewed as the world's superpower, right? Is that when you have programs like this and there are some material benefits for people, right? That's when a pollster asks them and they're like, yeah, I like the United States.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. And, you know, to contrast, like China does the Belt and Road Initiative and funds infrastructure.
Well, they're going to fill the gap.
And they already are, right? They already have. And part of one of the weapons that China has used very successfully against us in the trade war is they have aggressively locked in all of these rare earth mineral supply lines in countries around the world using their own soft power projection. Our equivalent of Belt and Road is basically USAID. And we had done some of this of like, oh, we'll fund your health program, but we want some access to those, you know, for our capitalists, to your lithium mine, whatever it is.
Right.
And, you know, so at a time when it has never been more clear that having access to some of these rare earth metals is genuinely important for our own, you know, ability to produce and have the things that we're used to, and for the defense industrial base and all those sorts of things as well. At a time when that has never been more clear, we are completely rolling back on that direction as well. So, you know, I certainly share the critique of the way that U.S. empire has been used, especially to create markets for capitalists, to make sure that there's nobody that's anywhere, you know, approaching a lefty that's coming up in various countries around the world. But in terms of the impact, that just rolling all of that back, you know, with no alternatives in place whatsoever, yeah, it's going to be deadly. It's going to be horrific.
Elon just wants to get rid of anything and everything that's objectively good, which is why he cut pediatric cancer research. It's why they cut Meals on Wheels. It's why he slashed the Social Security offices by 50%, and they're trying to make that program collapse under its own weight. He believes the government should do nothing except make him rich. Let him loot the treasury.
That's right.
He's taken $38 billion from the government, but he whines and cries and bitches and moans if there's some poor kid who gets food stamps, right? So fuck him and the horse he rode in on. He's the absolute worst, and the criticism of him is completely valid. All right, let's wrap this up with this one, Crystal. So Bernie Sanders went on Fox News. He's, of course, been doing this anti-oligarchy tour recently, and this is probably the biggest dose of truth that Fox News has gotten maybe ever.
The Democratic Party is now at 41% favorable. Why is that? Why is it so underwater?
And the Republicans are now a whole lot better.
A little bit better, but not a whole lot, I agree.
I'll tell you why. People understand that the political system in this country is largely corrupt, both parties. Why is that? You know the answer. The answer is that you have billionaires in both political parties determine what legislation gets to the floor and who is the candidate. Right now, let me give you both examples. You're in the Republican Party, and you say, you know what? I don't like this Trump idea of giving massive tax breaks to the rich and cutting Medicaid and education. You get up and say that. What happens to you? The next day, Elon Musk says, I got unlimited amounts of money. We're going to run a candidate in a primary against you. Democratic Party side, what happens if somebody says, you know what? Maybe it's not a good idea to fund Netanyahu's war machine, which is creating starvation for children in Gaza. I'm going to vote against that. Next day, AIPAC is going to be running against you. We have a corrupt campaign finance system. Billionaires in both political parties are calling the tunes. The American people understand that.
And that's why we love him.
And that's why the country loves him, by the way.
What he just said, this is what we've been screaming for so long. You have to have an answer to the right-wing story, the right-wing narrative that all of your problems, blame trans people, blame immigrants, scapegoat them. They're the real issue. And what he said here very clearly is, yeah, I don't care what fucking poll you show me about the Democrats' popularity. Let me tell you what the real problem is. The real problem is billionaires fucking run our country. And the corruption runs our country.
I love, too, how Brett Baier thought that was going to be like such a
yeah,
like, oh, but the Democrats are probably Bernie's like, yeah.
But let me defend my Democratic colleagues.
Yeah.
No, he was like, bitch, of course that's the case, and let me tell you why.
Yeah, because both parties are corrupt. And let me give you an example. If you come out against the starvation of children in Gaza, AIPAC is going to drop a ton of money on your head. And I was also thinking about, you know, these ghouls like Alyssa Slotkin, who are out there, the American people can't understand oligarchy. The American people understand exactly what Bernie Sanders is saying right here.
And there are literal polls that show they do understand oligarchy. It's completely made up. It's totally fucking elitist and pedantic to be like, you can possibly understand a word like oligarchy, please. And this is coming from the person who voted for 8 of Trump's cabinet picks, at least 8 of them. She voted for the Lake and Riley Act, which got rid of due process for immigrants. How's that working out, you dumb bitch?
Yeah, you want to talk about CIA ops. We were talking about Casey Means and Callie Means. Like
Slotkin is
literally
100%.
comes out of the CIA, and then all of a sudden they're like, she's the future. It's like, she's not. No one wanted this.
Guys, she was a Bush national security advisor. Are you kidding? So the people that did multiple illegal wars, Abu Ghraib, Guantanamo Bay, torture, destroyed the Constitution. That's who you. Yeah, that's the future.
That's the future.
Fuck off.
Oh my God.
It stems from the mindset, the Chuck Schumer mindset of like, well, we got to go semi-MAGA. We got to go half MAGA because this is what the country. No, what they want is a clear distinction. And that's what Bernie Sanders is offering here. Now, I would also say, Bernie didn't point this out, but I like that he didn't point this out in this particular segment. He kind of alluded to it slightly. But like, it's also not totally even, right? Let's not pretend like the corruption is exactly the same on both sides. Yes, both parties are corrupt, but one party is way more corrupt. Elon Musk gave Trump $270 million, bought his ass the White House, and then illegally hacked into the government and started cutting whatever fucking programs he wanted to. I'm sorry, that's not the same as the Democrats. He makes a great point about the Democrats. AIPAC is a great example of they do really try their best to buy both parties.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And they've been more successful. They basically have every Republican except Thomas Massie.
Yeah.
They probably have like, what, 60, 70% of the Democrats or so? But they try their fucking darndest to buy both parties, but he's getting to the core of the problem.
Right.
And this is, every Democrat needs to be saying this. There's a reason why his crowds and AOC's crowds are fucking colossal, and Alyssa Slotkin couldn't fill an Arby's parking lot.
Right.
There's a reason for that, and people need to wake up to that reality. But the thing is, Crystal, I think they are. I think people are waking up to that. I think that's why you see these lists about who's a contender in 2028, and the list, it's like over time it shifts like more and more and more left. Like you see, oh, Tim Walz is on the list, and AOC is on the list, and J.B. Pritzker's on the list, and he was just absolutely slamming Republicans and saying there's no room for compromise. And it's a hopeful moment for that reason, where that mealy-mouthed fucking middle ground, let's compromise and sing Kumbaya bullshit, there's no place for that anymore. It just doesn't exist.
I mean, one of the biggest psyops of the past decade is the way that the media and the Democratic establishment convinced Democratic-based voters that Bernie Sanders is unpopular and unelectable, when the total polar opposite. And that's why they had to so aggressively try to persuade people of that, because poll after poll shows he's one of, if not the most popular politician in the country. He can go on Fox News and make a point like that, where there are going to be a lot of people listening to Fox News who are right-wing Trump supporters who are nodding their head. He can still, at how old is he now, like 83?
83, I think.
Go out on the campaign trail effectively and generate larger crowds than he even ever has in his entire life. And so I think that particular psyop, like, it has run out of track. People are not buying it anymore.
Because he's vindicated now.
Because
everything he said to come to pass came to pass.
Yeah.
Every single thing he said. And the liberal voters are now going, I'm with them. I'm a lefty.
Yeah, well, and I think the inability of and the weakness of liberalism in like neoliberalism and standing up to Trump, I think has been on display. I think that's an undercurrent. And then I think the most important thing is just the way that he and AOC and other lefties really filled the void when people like Alyssa Slotkin were like, hey, let's vote for the Laken Riley Act. Maybe that's the thing to do. They were out there from the jump saying, no, we are going to fight back. We are going to call this what it is. We're going to go out on the trail. We're going to make some noise. We're going to do whatever it is we can think to do.
There is also an element of consistency among the resistance liberals, because their core of their politics really does stem from, I want to do the opposite of every single thing Trump does. Fuck Trump. I don't like him. Let's do the opposite of that. And that was their belief in Trump's first term. Mm-hmm. And now what they're realizing is that in the second term is they're going, wait a second, who actually believes that? Who is actually going to resist him at every turn, and who's actually going to fight for the opposite policies? Yeah. And that's where they go, oh, wait, it is Bernie. It is AOC. Yeah. What are we talking about? You got Chuck Schumer, who's like giving Trump what he wants with this continuing resolution. That's not what I want you to do. I want you to fight. And it's the left flank that's going, we're here to fight. Yeah. And so there's also, I think they have changed in some ways, but there's also that element of the core of what they want is consistent. Yeah. Just now, they would go, you know, maybe Hillary actually wasn't the one who was the most anti-Trump and wasn't the one who would do the opposite of what the Republicans want to do the most. Maybe that was Bernie all along. Yeah. And that's true. And they're realizing it. They're all waking up, and that's why the polls are what they are. And that's why, like, AOC surged to second place when in the 2028 primary polling. The one thing we have to watch out for and be careful about is the imposters, like the Cory Bookers, who did his 25-hour speech and tried to pretend like, I'm fighting completely. And then, like, within 2 weeks, he votes for one of Trump's cabinet picks, and he takes money from AIPAC and gives Israel what they want. Because he's a fraud. He's faking. He doesn't actually mean it when he pretends like, oh, yeah, I'm a big fighter, bro. Yeah. But, I don't know what you think, but I think the base will largely catch on to that. I think they're actually looking for the authentic, like, opposite of Trump.
I hope so, but I will say the liberal base did eat that shit up with Cory Booker.
Well, wait a second. I did, too, at the time, because at the time, he hadn't fully ripped the mask off. I warned everybody about his Israel record was always horrible, and I warned everybody about that. But I saw that as an indication of like, oh no, he's actually, at least he's doing something to try to fight back. But like I said, within a few weeks, he had voted for a Trump cabinet pick, and I was like, okay, well, you just ruined it. And by the way, everybody else also said the same thing. Everybody else was like, yeah, he ruined it.
I've seen all the polls, the Democratic primary polls, that even subsequently have shown him, you know, going towards the top of the contenders.
I only saw one, and it was before he voted for that Trump cabinet pick again.
Maybe.
But I hope you're right. Saw one where he surged.
But you're right that is a concern for me, because the other person, you know, that I worry about is Pete. Yeah. Who is, I think, more skilled than Cory Booker and hasn't been in the Senate taking all those votes, so can really morph himself into whatever he thinks meets the moment.
That's true. I genuinely don't know in this moment how Pete would govern. I don't know. There was a time where I was convinced he's like a Bill Clinton 2.0. I don't know if he's a Bill Clinton 2.0 anymore.
He's a shapeshifter. I mean, he genuinely was a solid regulator. Under Biden, he got better. I mean, he did do some like crackdowns on the airline. He did some things that were genuinely good. So I think your, question mark about him is warranted because he was better than I expected. But I personally think he just finger in the wind, like goes wherever he thinks the moment is.
Yeah, he's clever. He's crafty. He tries. He finds the lane. He can sense the moment in a way.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Hey guys, we had Lisa Gilbert from Public Citizen on the show this week. She is an expert on Trump's insane, immense corruption, specifically his crypto corruption. You don't want to miss this episode. There's a bunch of mind-boggling facts in there. Sign up for Crystal Kyle and Friends below and watch the full thing.